Lie down. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders fall. Imagine you are lying on a soft meadow, far from the city, far from the noise. The sky above you is deep black and completely covered in stars. More stars than you have ever counted, more than you ever could. They twinkle very softly, like candles in an infinitely large room. And as you gaze up into that velvet silence, a question drifts gently into your mind. The question: are you alone? Not here on the meadow, not on earth, but out there, in the vast, in the wide open, in the unimaginable space between the stars, which stretches and stretches and never ends. Once upon a time there was a scientist named Enrico Fermi, a kind, clever man who sat down to lunch in 1950, just like that, with friends, a plate of food in front of him, and suddenly asked a question so simple it made everyone go quiet. Where is everybody? He didn't mean his friends, he meant the others, the ones out there, the ones who might exist, the ones who, statistically speaking, almost certainly should exist. Because look up again at those stars above you. In our galaxy alone, the Milky Way, that slow spiraling dance of light and gas and time, there are several 100 billion stars. 100 billion. Every one of them could have planets, and many of those planets could have water, warmth, life. And yet, silence, no signals, no visitors, no sign that anyone out there is sitting beneath their own sky, looking up, asking the very same question. People call this the Fermi paradox, and it is one of the most beautiful, quiet, profound questions humanity has ever asked. Let it ring inside you for a moment, like a distant bell. The equation of possibilities. Many years after Fermi, in a quiet office full of books and star charts, sat another scientist. His name was Frank Drake, and he didn't just want to ask the question. He wanted to think it, to organize it, to give it a shape you could hold. So he wrote an equation, not the kind of equation you learn for an exam, more the kind you imagine as you drift towards sleep, a series of questions that fold into one another like layers of a dream. How many stars are born each year in our galaxy? 1 to 3, the astronomers said, every year. New suns, born from gas and gravity and time. How many of them have planets? Almost all of them, it turned out. The universe creates planets the way a sleeping child creates dreams, almost casually, almost inevitably. How many of those planets could carry life? Here, the equation grows softer, less certain, like a path disappearing into morning mist. Possibly many, perhaps very many. How many of them actually develop life? Unknown. We have only one example ourselves. How many of those develop intelligent life? Even more unknown. On Earth, it took 3.5 billion years for the first trembling flicker of life to become a creature that made fire, invented music, and looked up at the sky. 3.5 billion years. Imagine how slow that was. How patient the universe was. How it simply waited. And the final question of the equation, perhaps the most important, is the quietest of all. How long do such civilizations survive? Drake didn't know. Nobody knows. But that question holds the real secret. Because if civilizations only flare up like shooting stars before going dark, then perhaps that explains the silence. Or perhaps not. Perhaps there are other explanations, more beautiful explanations. Listen. The dark forest. There's an old story, not truly old, but it feels that way, about the universe as a forest, a dark forest. Imagine, it is deep night. You stand among enormous ancient trees whose branches knit together above you, hiding all the light. It is still, almost too still, and you feel it, that you are not alone. Somewhere out there, between the trees, others are moving, slowly, silently. They have eyes that see in the dark, and they are wondering the same thing as you. What is that? Friend or enemy? In this story, told by a Chinese writer named Liu Cixin, every intelligent being in the universe has made the same decision. Hide, stay silent, send no signal, because whoever reveals themselves might be found, and being found might be dangerous. It is a dark idea, but also somehow strangely comforting, because it says the silence does not mean no one is there. It only means everyone is being careful, the way you might sometimes be careful, before you trust someone, before you let yourself be seen. And perhaps, somewhere out there, a civilization is deciding to break the silence, to send a signal, to say, here we are. We didn't mean to frighten you. And when that moment comes, it will begin very quietly. A single signal in the static, like a breath in a still night. The zoo. Or perhaps they are already watching us. Imagine that for a moment. Close your eyes briefly. Somewhere, in a part of the universe we have not yet found and cannot see, a civilization sits. Ancient beings, not frightening, but wise and still, like old trees. They have telescopes that far exceed our own, instruments that gather light we have not even named yet, and they are looking at us. They have been for a long time. They watched us discover fire. They watched us build houses and cities and towers that scraped the sky. They watched us launch our first wobbly rockets upward, like a child attempting a step it has not quite learned yet. And they watch, without interfering, without revealing themselves, not because they dislike us, but because they understand how important it is to grow on your own, to learn on your own, to discover for yourself who you are. Scientists call this the zoo hypothesis, the idea that we might be like animals in a nature reserve, not locked in, but protected, observed with curiosity and goodwill. And someday, when we are ready, when we have learned to live peacefully with one another, when we have traveled further into the stars, perhaps then they will show themselves, like a stranger who was always there, waiting for you to look up. It is a lovely thought, is it not? That we are not abandoned, that someone is watching over us. Let that thought stay with you for a while. The Great Filter. Not every story is easy, but even the harder ones can be told gently, like a fairy tale about dragons that shows, in the end, the dragon can be defeated. There is an idea called the Great Filter, which says, somewhere along the long road from simple life to the stars, there is a threshold, one that almost no one crosses. Perhaps this threshold still lies ahead, that civilizations fail again and again at the same problems, their own weapons, the exhaustion of their world, things they created and could no longer control. If that is true, then the Great Filter is a warning, and at the same time an invitation to be wiser, more careful, more caring, with ourselves, with each other, with the planet we share. Take one slow, deep breath. Perhaps the most important story the universe tells is this: you still have time. You still have the choice. The Rare Earth. In a book, not old but wise, two researchers named Ward and Brownlee wrote something astonishing. The Earth, they said, is not an ordinary planet. The Earth is a miracle. Think for a moment about how many things had to be exactly right for you to be lying here, breathing, alive. The Earth turns at precisely the right distance from the Sun, not too close, not too far. Water stays liquid. The light is warm. Our moon, large, round, patient, holds the Earth steady. Without it, the planet would wobble like a spinning top, slowly coming to a stop. The seasons would be wild and unpredictable. Life might never have learned to adapt. Jupiter, the great quiet giant at the far edge of our solar system, shields us. Its enormous gravity catches comets and asteroids that would otherwise come hurtling toward us. It is like a silent guardian who never sleeps. And deep inside the Earth, in the glowing core of iron and nickel, an invisible shield rotates, the magnetic field. It keeps the harsh rays of the sun from slowly stripping away our atmosphere, the way wind blows out a candle. How many planets have all of this? Perhaps very few, perhaps frighteningly few. Perhaps the Earth is not typical. Perhaps it is one of a kind, a single fragile wonder in an ocean of darkness, and you live on it, right now, breathing. Is that not strangely beautiful? The simulation. Now comes an idea that feels like a dream within a dream. What if this world, all these stars, this planet, this moment, were a kind of story? A very complex, very vivid story that someone is telling? A philosopher named Nick Bostrom once thought about this, very seriously, very carefully. And he reached this conclusion. If civilizations ever become advanced enough to create complete living universes, then it is very likely that we are living inside such a story. Because there would be far more of these created worlds than real ones. It is a strange thought, almost dizzying. But there is something comforting in it too. If our world is a story, then that means someone is telling it. Someone who took the time to invent butterflies and the smell of rain on warm stone and the sound of music that goes straight to the heart. Someone who let you dream. Perhaps that is a way of praying or a way of marveling. Either works. The Panspermia fairy tale. Once upon a time, very, very long ago, when the earth was still young and hot and volcanoes boiled the seas, there was a tiny traveler. It was smaller than a grain to divide. The first step of an unimaginably long journey that would eventually lead to fish, to birds, to humans, to you. Scientists call this idea Panspermia, that life travels through space, like seeds on the wind. That life on Earth perhaps did not begin here. That all of us, you, me, every tree and every octopus are perhaps children of the stars. In the most literal, most beautiful sense. Imagine that. You are not just made of stardust. You might be a traveler who arrived here long ago from very far away. How far? Nobody knows. Quantum whispers. Here is a small secret that physicists know and which feels like magic. When two tiny particles, say 2 particles of light, have once been connected and are then separated, they remain connected forever. You can send them to opposite ends of the universe. It does not matter. Whatever happens to one, the other knows instantly. Albert Einstein did not like this. He called it spooky action at a distance, as though the universe were cheating, as though it were breaking its own rules. But it is true. Experiments have proven it. In 2022, there was even a Nobel Prize awarded for it. Some scientists now dream of this. What if advanced civilizations use these connections? What if they communicate with each other through the silence of space in ways we cannot even imagine yet? With signals no radio can receive, no telescope can see. Perhaps they are talking to each other right now. Perhaps the universe is full of conversations we simply cannot hear, like the sound of a very distant sea that you sometimes think you can hear when it is quiet enough. Are you quiet enough? The Gentle Giants. One last story before you fall asleep. Perhaps the most beautiful one. Imagine, somewhere out there, far, far away, around a star we have not yet given a name, lives a civilization that is very, very old. Older than our language, older than our oldest stories. They once struggled too. They made their own mistakes. They nearly lost their world and then saved it at the very last moment with great effort and sorrow and love. And because they know that, because they know what it is to be young and unfinished and at risk, they watch over us. They see us from a distance. They're not frightening. They are not cold. They are like old grandparents watching a child learn to walk, ready to step in if it is truly necessary, but also knowing that falling is part of learning. And they wait for the moment when we are ready, when we come to them not because we have to, but because we want to, because we have finally learned to take good care of ourselves and are therefore ready to be friends. Perhaps that is the plan. Perhaps that is the story the universe is telling. Not loneliness, not silence forever, but a very, very long road home. The Galactic Club. And when that day comes, when we are ready, what then? Then perhaps an invitation. Imagine a network, a quiet, invisible community of civilizations that all made it through, that all survived their own great filter, their own dark times, their own mistakes. A galactic club, no grand building, no loud ceremony, just a signal, a friendly signal that says, "We see you, we know you made it, welcome." What would they ask us? What would we tell them? Perhaps about the music we invented, about the stories we tell, about the way we look after each other when it gets dark. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would smile with whatever they have for smiling and say, "Yes, that is exactly what we were waiting for." The end and the beginning. The stars above you are still shining, quietly, patiently. The universe is nearly 14 billion years old. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. You are how old? And yet you carry all of it within you. The dust of stars that your atoms are made from. The story of life that slowly, over 3 billion years, transformed itself into you. The questions people asked 1,000 years ago, and the questions you ask now. Perhaps there are others out there. Perhaps we are alone. Perhaps they are watching us. Perhaps they are whispering to each other through quantum particles. Perhaps they are sleeping right now, as you will soon sleep, on distant worlds, beneath distant stars. We do not know. But not knowing is not empty. It is full of possibilities, full of beauty, full of the quiet understanding that the asking itself may be the most precious thing a conscious being can do. Let the questions go now. Let the stars make their slow rounds. Let the universe do its mysterious work. You have the whole night, and the stars are very, very patient. Sleep well. Dream of distant worlds. The end. For everyone who looks up at the sky at night and wonders,